We've all seen the slick ads before. A stray photobomber vanishes with a tap. An unwanted object disappears like magic. Or a crowded photo suddenly becomes a deserted space. From Samsung's Galaxyai to Apple Intelligence and even Google's Pixel wizardry, the promise of flawless AI photo editing is everywhere. But beyond the tightly controlled marketing, how good are these tools actually? Can they live up to the hype when faced with real-world photo scenarios? That's exactly what I'm here to find out. Hey, it's Nathaniel, and today I'm going to be doing an AI photo battle between some of the most popular phone companies. First off is the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra with its Galaxyai. Then I'll be using the S24 Ultra with One UI 6, also using Galaxyai. Next is the Google Pixel 9 Pro Fold using Magical Editor. Then I have the Honor Magic V3 with its Honor AI Eraser. And finally, representing Apple is the M4 Pro MacBook Pro using Apple Intelligence. Wait, what? Why is a laptop in this photo battle? Well, there's several reasons why. The first one is, I don't actually have an iPhone 16 Pro to use in the comparison, but I do own a MacBook, so it's stepping into the ring in the iPhone's place. The other reason is, the way Apple Intelligence works, it doesn't actually process anything in the cloud. It does it all on device. And according to the online specs, there's not that much difference between the iPhone's AI on-device capabilities and the MacBooks, so the results should be similar. But because it's producing its results on device and not from in the cloud processing, the results might not be the same compared to the other devices. So to give it something to compare to, I will run a second set of tests with the S25 Ultra on its on-device processing mode as well. I've got 7 different photos I'll be testing them all against. If there's anything you're keen to see specifically, I've got the timestamps down below. Make sure to like and subscribe to this video if you're keen to see more content like this. Alright, let's dive in. So the first photo I have is of myself with several people in the background. This is probably the most common use case everyone will use AI object eraser tools for, and most AI tools are generally geared towards this scenario. As such, it's a great benchmark for the devices to see how capable they all are. First off the ranks are the S25 Ultra, the Apple MacBook, and the S25 Ultra processing on device. Samsung's object detection system is second to none, being able to accurately detect objects in the background and select the right things to remove. Apple Intelligence is a bit of a mixed bag, as while it does detect the right background objects, sometimes removing them is not perfect, and I ended up having to scribble over them to actually remove them from the background. Funnily enough, this was the best version I was able to obtain after much scrubbling as well, as several other attempts completely messed up the removal of the black suitcase in the left corner. The final results came out incredibly well for the S25 Ultra, even getting the light reflection on the ground correct. With Apple's attempt, if you zoom out, it looks pretty comparable. However, once you zoom in, you'll see some of its editing is blurred like it was a poor performance. And the on-device processing of the S25 Ultra does a pretty good job as well, with only missing the guy's phone sticking out. From far away, they all do a pretty incredible job. Next is the S24 Ultra, the Google Pixel 9 Pro Fold, and the Honor Magic V3. Google's object detection doesn't seem to be as good as the likes of Samsung or Honor's, as even circling something won't always detect the exact object. And the annoying thing about Honor's AI is that it will detect and delete objects one at a time, compared to Samsung and Google being able to select all you want to delete and then do it in one go. Hence, you can see that I sped up the videos. Results-wise though, the S25 Ultra just didn't seem to be as good as everyone else, putting a random object in the place of the guy on the left, while Google also missed the phone in the man's hand on the right, and Honor's version was pretty spot on and very comparable to the S25 Ultra. So for the most part, most of the devices will do a pretty solid job of cleaning up the background of any photo you have. The next photo I have is the first real test for all of the devices, testing object detection in the foreground. I have a hand which has a watch attached to the wrist, and a tape measure that drapes across the hand. This tests each AI's ability to not only remove the object, but also fill in the gap with AI-generated content. I will say that the Apple MacBook is very quick to process its image, potentially due to the fact that it's a gigantic computer chip compared to the S25 Ultra's mobile phone chip, although it's not as good at object detection as Samsung. Here is where we have our first DNF, as it seems like the ability for Samsung to generate and fill in the gaps in an image requires cloud-based processing, as the on-device processing isn't able to generate human-based content. But when you compare the actual results, you can see just how much better cloud-based processing helps with the results, as Apple's looks like a bad Photoshop, looking like I have a dirty wrist, and giving my hand a shadow where there isn't anything to give it a shadow in the first place. When we look at the S24 Ultra, Google, and Honor, all three have very good object detection. And when the results come out, the S24 Ultra suffers the same fate as Apple, doing an okay job on the wrist part, but bungling the center of the hand, giving it a dark shadow and messing up the fingers. Google, however, does a bang-on job of filling in the gaps, making it look like a normal hand, and Honor made it look like I got a tan gone wrong, with a watch tan line on the wrist, and then the marks on the hand where the tape used to be. So in the end, the S25 Ultra and Google Pixel performed the best with object removal in the foreground. The next photo is about testing object removal in the foreground, but also filling in the background correctly. Samsung just has a much better two-step approach, doing object detection first before executing the AI erasing to make sure you have what you want to delete, whereas Apple deletes as you go, which I feel like is part of the reason it does a poor job even when compared to the on-device version of the S25 Ultra. And the results speak for themselves, with the S25 Ultra not only making it look like a car was never parked there, but even the background looks relatively normal, and only zooming in completely will you notice that the house has no proper entry gate. Apple's, on the other hand, just botched it completely, and you can't use the excuse of it doing a poor job because it's on device, because the S25 Ultra on device does a decent job as well, only screwing up the shadowing on the road, and then inserting a weirdly shaped car for no reason. Looking at the results from the other three devices, they all do a good job of object detection yet again, while the S24 Ultra fails miserably at this test, completely replacing the original car with just another car instead. Both Google and Honor do a splendid job of removing the car completely. However, Google does botch up the background a bit, while Honor does a relatively good job on the background. And again, only upon close inspection would you notice the photo was edited. However, it doesn't seem to be able to handle shadows as well because of the color of the road where the car used to be. At this point, I just wanted to point out that while the S24 Ultra failed miserably at this photo, it has absolutely nothing to do with the hardware being a year old. The Honor Magic V3 has the exact same chip, and in fact, I have a Fold 6, which came out the same year as the S24 Ultra, and also has the same chip as well, but running One UI 7, and this one is able to remove the car perfectly like the S25 Ultra. So I can't properly explain why One UI 6 runs much poorer than One UI 7, if it's sending the same information to the same server. Either One UI 7 has much better AI editing software in its coding, or the fact that it's on One UI 7 is a credentials gateway when it sends the data to the cloud to get better processing. Either way, if you want a better editing on your older Samsung, then it's a great reason to update the software. Okay, back to the photo battle. And this is the famous hand in front of the face test, where you get the AI to generate your face that is covered by your hand. You know how there's a saying, slow and steady wins the race. And when it comes to Apple, they always like not being the first to market, so they can come out with a better version. Well, this is the exact same situation, only Apple is the first to complete this editing process, with really terrible results. The S25 Ultra genuinely looks like it could have been a normal photo I took. Again, Apple's version just looks like a bad Photoshop job. And unfortunately, the S25 Ultra's on-device processing isn't good enough to generate what it needs to fill in the gap of the missing hand. When it came to the S24 Ultra, Google, and Honor, the S24 Ultra failed again completely, replacing my hand with another hand. And when it came to Google, I was a bit surprised to find that they wanted nothing to do with facial feature editing at all. Honor's AI Eraser, on the other hand, is just not good enough to detect partial human features, and detected my whole body instead, believing that's what I wanted to delete. And basically, Thanos snaps me away. The next photo tests granular accuracy by only deleting the glasses on this guy's face. By now, we shouldn't be surprised by the results from each company. The S25 Ultra is by far the best out of all the devices by a country mile, while Apple just attempts to essentially Photoshop everything and call it Apple Intelligence. And with on-device processing, all the most powerful features for Samsung are cloud-based, so it won't be able to generate a new face without glasses. When it comes to the S24 Ultra, it really shows what a difference a year can make to software performance. Although it doesn't remove the glasses, it does an okay job of giving him another pair. Google won't touch faces, most likely because it doesn't want any sort of backlash and so won't let it do it at all, and Honor just removes the guy completely. Now this photo, I just wanted to test again how good these AIs are at altering faces. And to no surprise, the S25 Ultra does an incredible job, giving this guy a really good shave, while Apple just removed his mouth completely. And on-device processing can't generate content. The S24 Ultra's old software actually doesn't do a bad job. Instead of giving him a close shave, just gives him a normal shave nonetheless. Google again doesn't want to touch faces, and Honor deletes the entire person completely, so nothing new here. This very last photo test is for those people who have a great photo with you and your partner, but are now broken up. and either want to keep the photo without them in it, or just have a vengeance and want to delete them from every single photo you own. Without a shadow of a doubt, the S25 Ultra hits it out of the park, with the ex-boyfriend being written out of existence completely and generating not only a brand new arm, but the grip the guy had on the girl's shoulder has disappeared completely. Apple's attempt completely baffled me because it wasn't able to delete the guy at all after numerous attempts of scribbling over his body, and instead went for pixelating his head and infusing his hand into the girl's shoulder. While the S25 Ultra's on-device processing was able to get rid of the guy, it couldn't generate a whole new arm, and instead just extended the girl's hair, but did get rid of the guy's hand. While on the other side, the S24 Ultra was able to delete the hand from the shoulder, but couldn't generate a new arm, instead opting to cover it with a weirdly placed coat that looks out of place. Google strangely ended up doing the exact same thing as the S24 Ultra, but even though I selected the hand, it wasn't able to get rid of it. And Honor came out second best, getting rid of the guy's hand and generating the arm, however falling at the final hurdle with the missing hand, and the weird shadowing again on the leg. But what if it's an ex-boyfriend? Well, this seemed a much easier fare to all the AI solutions, as the S25 Ultra had no trouble with it at all, both on the cloud version and the on-device version, although the cloud version looks much more normal with the generated arm. While Apple again went crazy with the pixelation, and I don't even know what it was trying to do at this point. Then when it came to the S24 Ultra, Google and Honor, the S24 Ultra was able to do it relatively well, replacing the girl with a surfboard, which would probably pass most observers so long as they don't scrutinize it too closely. Google's version actually came out best of the rest in this photo, and Honor would have come out second if it knew how to generate human limbs, but instead made this guy an amputee. So after putting these AIs through several real-world scenarios, what do we think of the results? It's actually really incredible how crazy good Samsung's Galaxy AI is at editing these photos, and no other competitor in this test held a candle to its results. It's hard to say who came out second best, because both Google and Honor were good and bad in different scenarios. When it came to filling the space of an image that you deleted an object from, Google seems to do a better job of generating the missing pieces, but its insistence on not touching facial features really hinders its capabilities. Honor, on the other hand, generally did a decent job, but needs to work on how it handles shadows, human limbs, and also object selection. Individually selecting objects you want to delete feels like a time-consuming process, and a waste of processing power if you have to delete things one by one as opposed to bulk delete. And Apple Intelligence really leaves you wanting. It is well behind its competitors in performance, and its decision to do all the processing on device just doesn't seem like a good idea. It really felt nothing more than an ordinary Photoshop tool, and compared to Samsung's on-device performance, its fundamental object detection is leagues behind Samsung, and the underlying software performance is just that much worse compared to Samsung. And Apple's pixelation choice is just really weird. But what do you think of the results? Were you surprised by them, or were they what you expected? Also, if I were to do this again, is there anything you'd like to see me compare the either device-wise or image-wise? Let me know in the comments. If you liked what you saw and want to see more content like this, then please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thanks again for staying until the end. Until next time, I'll see you in the next video.